I've got to show you what happened yesterday. Trump gave a press conference for his 1 year anniversary back in office, and what went down was honestly disturbing. We're talking about bizarre behavior caught on camera multiple times in the same day. If you're new here, I'm Jordan Vale, and we're building a community of people who actually pay attention to this stuff. We need people like you here, so hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get into this. Trump's press conference yesterday was supposed to be a victory lap. 1 year back in office, showing off his accomplishments. Instead, it turned into what CNN described as pretty winding, even by Trumpian standards. The whole thing lasted nearly 2 hours, and Trump spent the first 15 minutes doing something I've honestly never seen a president do. He stood at the podium flipping through mugshots, just standing there, mumbling to himself, showing pictures to the press corps. Watch this.
Most of them are coming from out of the country, and it's been caused by a previous administrator. Look at this, one after one. Boy, these are rough characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers, they're the mentally insane. There's some of them who are brutal killers, they're mentally insane. They're killers, but they're insane.
You see that? He's just flipping through photos, mumbling. At one point, he literally asked the reporters if they were getting bored with this, like he could tell he was losing them. Then he told them they were lucky he only went through like 100 mugshots. And then he just tossed the whole stack on the floor of the White House briefing room. A 79-year-old president doing this for 15 minutes straight. This isn't normal. But it gets weirder. After he finishes with the mugshots, he gets distracted by a binder clip. I'm not making this up. Watch.
It's a terrible thing. Here's the book on accomplishments. And this is something, ooh, I'm glad my finger wasn't in that sucker. That could have done some damage, but you know what? I wouldn't have shown the pain. I would have gone back. Boy, did you hear that? That was nasty. But I would not have shown the pain. I would have acted like nothing happened as my finger fell off. That was a nasty. I think somebody did that. It was him. It was my man. How were you? You didn't do it. I know you did. I know you didn't. So, but here's the book. These are all things we have. I'm going to read a few of the samples, but look at this. These are all, each line is something that we did. Nobody did that before. And it's big stuff, too. Look, we have the hottest country in the world.
He's fascinated by a binder clip. He says it could have taken his finger off. Then he assures everyone he would not have shown the pain, and then throws the binder clip on the floor, too. I'm telling you, this is not how presidents behave. This is distracted, rambling behavior from someone who can't stay focused. Multiple people who watched this noted how low energy it was, how slow and quiet Trump sounded. This is a guy known for being bombastic, loud, aggressive in his delivery, and he's just shuffling through papers, mumbling, getting distracted by office supplies. CNN watched for roughly 40 minutes and then just cut away. They stopped covering it. Anchor Brianna Keilar described it as pretty winding, even by Trumpian standards. A major news network decided it wasn't worth continuing to air. That's how bad it was. CNN doesn't cut away from a presidential press conference lightly. They made an editorial decision that this wasn't newsworthy enough to keep showing. That tells you something. Now, that was the press conference. Same day, later that evening, Trump does an interview with News Nation. Reporter asks him a straightforward question about his legislative priorities for 2026. Midterm election year coming up, what does he want Congress to focus on? Simple question. Watch what he says.
So looking back here at home domestically, last year you worked with Congress very closely, Republicans in charge of both the House and the Senate, and of course you're in the White House, and you worked with them on the big, beautiful bill. For 2026, especially in a midterm election year, what is your goal for Congress in terms of getting your agenda through? What is on the agenda? What expectations do you have for Congress?
Well, one of the things I'd like to do, we pass so many executive orders. I have great executive orders that are really common sense and good and like water coming out of a sink. The water wouldn't come out. They had all sorts of ridiculous restrictions. I took all of that off. Coming out of the shower head, you'd stand under a shower, there's no water coming out. So I passed so many things like that. Straws. They don't have to be paper anymore. They don't have to melt in your mouth. So I passed so many different things like that, and much more important things, but like that. They're important, the quality of life.
What was that? She asked about working with Congress on legislation. He answered with a rambling monologue about water coming out of sinks, about shower heads, about how straws don't melt in your mouth anymore. That's called a non sequitur. His answer had zero connection to the question asked. She's asking about Congress and midterms. He's talking about water pressure and paper straws. Look, Trump's been obsessed with shower heads for years. We know this. He complains about water flow constantly. The House even passed something called the Shower Act this month to increase water pressure because Trump wants it for his hair. But here's the thing. When you're asked a direct question about your legislative agenda and you can't stay on topic long enough to actually answer it, when you just start free associating about household fixtures, that's a problem. That's someone who can't focus, can't process the question, can't formulate a coherent response. Two incidents, same day, both showing really concerning behavior. And people noticed. Social media went crazy. Journalists who cover Trump regularly said they'd never seen anything like the mugshot show. Political commentators called it bizarre, odd, disturbing. But here's who really matters. Ty Cobb, Trump's former White House lawyer, guy who worked for Trump. Not some Democrat, not some never-Trumper. Someone from inside the administration. He went on MSNBC after watching this press conference, and he said something that should terrify everyone. Trump's own former lawyer said, "I don't think there's anybody outside of the United States who believes that Trump is sane." And when asked if Trump's decline was palpable, Cobb agreed, said, "Yes, you can see it." This is someone who knows Trump, who worked closely with him, saying out loud what a lot of people are thinking. And the polling backs this up. YouGov poll from last week shows 49% of Americans believe Trump is too old to be president. 49% believe he's suffering some level of cognitive decline. That's half the country. Even 14% of Republicans think he's declining. His own party, 14% are willing to admit it. After yesterday's performance, Democratic lawmakers started calling for the 25th Amendment again. Senator Ed Markey explicitly said, "Invoke the 25th Amendment." Representative Yasemin Ansari said the 25th Amendment exists for a reason. We need to invoke it immediately. The 25th Amendment lets the cabinet and vice president remove a president who's unable to discharge the duties of office. It exists for exactly this situation. When medical and legal experts say a president is showing signs that raise serious questions about fitness for office. Now look, I know what the pushback's going to be. People will say this is ageism. Say we're just attacking him for being old. That's not what this is. This is about specific behaviors. Mumbling through mugshots for 15 minutes, getting distracted by binder clips, rambling about shower heads when asked about legislation. These aren't normal behaviors. These are concerning behaviors that experts say are consistent with cognitive decline. Psychologist Dr. John Gartner has been documenting what he describes as a massive increase in clinical signs of dementia, nonsensical speeches, changing topics mid-sentence, memory lapses, all documented, all on video. This isn't about age. President Carter is 100 years old and still sharp. Bernie Sanders is 83 and gives coherent speeches. This is about Trump specifically showing a pattern of concerning behavior that's getting worse. Remember, this is the guy who spent years attacking Biden as Sleepy Joe, made Biden's age the centerpiece of his campaign, said Biden was mentally unfit, cognitively declining, too old for the job. And now Trump's the one falling asleep in meetings. The New Republic documented 11 separate incidents in 2025 where Trump appeared to doze off or zone out during important events. Trump's the one rambling incoherently about water pressure. Trump's the one mumbling to himself while shuffling papers. The hypocrisy is stunning, but more importantly, the behavior is dangerous. This man has access to nuclear codes. This man makes decisions that affect millions of lives, and we're watching him struggle to stay focused during a press conference, struggle to answer a basic question about legislative priorities. I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm not saying this because I disagree with his politics. I'm saying this because it's observable reality. You can watch the clips yourself. You can see the behavior. You can hear the rambling. 49% of Americans see it too. They're watching the same things we're watching, and they're concerned. Polls show 36% of Americans believe Trump's health and age are severely limiting his ability to fulfill presidential duties. That's more than 1 in 3 people. And here's what really gets me. Trump's at the World Economic Forum in Davos this week. He's representing the United States on the world stage, and foreign leaders just watched him mumble through mugshots and ramble about showerheads. Ty Cobb said, "Nobody outside the United States thinks Trump is sane." How do you think that plays internationally? How do you think our allies feel watching this? How do you think our adversaries are reacting? This matters. Presidential fitness matters. Cognitive ability matters. We can't just ignore this because it's uncomfortable, or because we don't want to seem ageist, or because his supporters will get mad. The 25th Amendment exists for this reason. The cabinet and vice president have a constitutional duty to evaluate whether the president can discharge his duties. And based on yesterday's performance, based on the pattern we've seen over the past year, that's a conversation they need to have. Will they? Probably not. J.D. Vance isn't going to remove Trump. The cabinet's full of loyalists who won't act. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't pay attention to what's happening. Because this isn't going away. If anything, it's getting worse. The press conference yesterday was worse than things we saw 6 months ago. The rambling is more frequent. The distraction is more obvious. The inability to focus is more pronounced. 2026 midterms are coming up. Voters need to know what's happening. They need to see these clips. They need to understand that experts are raising serious concerns about the fitness of the person in the Oval Office. And Republicans need to decide if they're okay with this, if they're comfortable having a president who can't answer a basic question about his legislative agenda without rambling about water fixtures, if they're fine with someone who gets distracted by binder clips during official press conferences. Because if they are, that tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. Power over country, party over safety, loyalty over reality. I'm telling you, pay attention to this. Share these clips. Talk about what you're seeing. Contact your representatives if you're concerned. This is about fitness for office. And right now, based on observable evidence, there are serious questions about whether Trump is fit to serve. The 25th Amendment exists for a reason. Maybe it's time we actually use it.
Thanks for spending a few minutes digging into this with me. If you want more grounded, progressive commentary without the outrage bait, subscribe and stick around. Every time you watch, share, and engage, it helps build a community that believes democracy is worth understanding and defending. I'll see you in the next video.